Hi, welcome. I'm Haley Bowman, Communications Director with the Iowa State Bar Association, and I'm here today with Olivia Brooks, Young Lawyers Division Mock Trial Committee Co-Chair. Olivia, thanks for being here with us today. And we are going to discuss when an individual registers to volunteer as a judge at the mock trial program, how does that judging and scoring work? Olivia, if you could please explain the process.
Absolutely. So first, you've signed up. We ask you all to arrive about 20-ish or so minutes early to the round. Then we'll do a little bit of a judge's briefing there. Big picture, when judging, you'll kind of hear from two different teams. So if it's a civil case, the plaintiff and the defense. If it's a criminal case, our prosecution and the defense. Each team will go through their opening, they'll do direct and cross, and then they'll also do their closing examinations. So you'll have a ballot, which is your electronic scoring sheet, and judge each of those roles. We have some resources available for when you sign up to judge. One of them being sort of a rubric, and that also appears on your electronic ballot. And kind of high level with like each of those roles. With an opening, we're really looking for storytelling. We're looking for, are they giving you a highlight reel of the facts, of the charges, giving you an idea of what you're going to hear. With the directs, we're looking at open-ending questions, letting the witness kind of take the spotlight, be the star, stepping back while the direct is still letting the organization of the direct kind of move forward. With the witness, are they in character? Are they responding? Does it feel rehearsed or does it feel polished? Those are kind of the differences we're looking at there. With crosses, are we looking at closed-ended questions? Are we looking at a variety? Is it, were you there on X date, right? Versus, changing up some wording there. Being not necessarily antagonistic always on cross, but being productive in your questions and finding that right balance given the character of the witness. And then with closing, looking at, we're recapping the evidence. Are we actually talking about what we just heard about in the trial, or is it a canned closing that, maybe says something that you expected to come out that didn't? Looking at students that can adapt in the moment and kind of pick up what was important in that round versus what they expected. So you'll be able to judge each of those roles in a 1 through 10, and then you'll also be able to give scores for the whole team and then rank your top 3 witnesses and your top 3 attorneys.
Wow, thank you so much for that explanation, Olivia. And you kind of went over a lot of information. Is there any highlights or, a single takeaway that volunteer judges need to keep in mind or consider?
Sure. So I think, thinking about like most important or, highlight reel, I think is a really good way to look at it because really a couple things come to mind. The first being that first and foremost, this is an educational experience. We want our students to walk away from this having learned a lot throughout the semester, and then having the trial, the rounds, be kind of that like final learning moment. So we really want this to encourage growth in the students. Where we can see that coming from in the rounds is particularly in the comments that the judges give to the students, both in the written format, but then also kind of the 10 minutes or so after each round. But yeah, so really looking to encourage growth, create a positive atmosphere for the students. As far as focusing on the performance and the skills is the other thing we'll really want to focus on there. For example, professionalism can be a scoring factor, but how we look at professionalism is how they conduct themselves in the courtroom, not how they're dressed, not your specific preferences on style, but was this did they conduct themselves, hold themselves out to be professional in the courtroom? And then the other thing to kind of focus on there would be the rules. So, students, and I kind of alluded to this in the last bit, but, we don't expect each student to do the same thing or have the same approach or, even approach directs in like the exact same way. But looking at how they do it and did they showcase a knowledge of the rules? Did they showcase a knowledge of evidence? Did they showcase consistency of their case and their case theory? and just kind of looking at not so much, did I necessarily like the approach, but did that approach demonstrate a knowledge of materials and knowledge of the facts, the rules, those types of things.
That is super helpful. Are there any other kind of final tips that you would give or advice to individuals who signed up to volunteer as a judge during mock trial?
Certainly. I think the other thing with that we get a lot of questions on in judging is, how do I know what a 10 is? How do I know what a 9 is? I think, personally for me, 10s are, that's the super rare performance where I can think of, at most like one thing and it's so nitpicky and it's really at that point personal preference. But I know other judges that are also, we really love having the variety too, where, 10s are that was a really great performance. So just as long as you're consistent in your numbering, so I think that you can do a lot in a round as far as judging it, as far as creating, room for feedback and room for growth between that like 5 and 9 mark, saving that 10 for that like exceptional performance. And the other end of that too is, of course, I think we want this to be a positive experience. We want this to be a growing opportunity. And I think anything lower than a 4 is kind of where we draw that line of, the 4 really gets the point across. Giving it a 3 or a 2 or a 1, we're not really communicating anything more in that. And it might, in fact, actually leave a negative experience on the whole. So I find that kind of that 5 to 9 range is where we can really get a lot of productive feedback on that. Again, really focusing on the skills. And it's not the legal merits. So the skills that they show, did the case have a theory? Did it have an overarching theme throughout? Are we talking about evidence that's persuasive? Obviously, mock trial is a closed universe, so the students only have what they have to work with. And so looking at, did they use the material that they are given effectively, as opposed to, wow, I really wish I would have heard, something on this expert or whatever, and maybe it's in the materials, maybe it's not. But just letting the skills and the use of the material that they give you kind of guide it. And then as far as feedback goes, really knowing that again, and I feel like I've mentioned it a couple times, but we've heard from students that, yes, of course, 9s feel great, but what really sticks with them and what they remember is the comments, and it's remembering that the constructive feedback. So both, I thought it was excellent how you impeached that witness and chose that opportunity to, highlight that piece of evidence, but then also picking opportunities for constructive feedback that can be, really actionable and kind of discreet in the sense of uh, finding, moments to comment on, and then having that be, the driving factor. And I thought it was a 9 because X, Y, and Z. And that's the kind of information that both sticks with the students, but also, from our perspective, really makes this like that educational experience.
Well, thank you so much, Olivia. This has been quite a knowledgeable conversation. And hopefully for those registered to volunteer as a mock trial judge, you have all the information you need when it comes to knowing what to do in regards to scoring and making it a good experience for the student participants as well. She had mentioned feedback, which I know it makes a huge impact on those young students and potentially future Iowa lawyers. So thank you so much again, and we'll talk soon.